After the end of the Cold War and the fall of the Soviet Union, East Europe was in chaos. After Tito, the leader of Yugoslavia, died, nationalism between Croatia, Bosnia, and Serbia threatened to tear the federation apart. As a result, separatist parties began to gain power in these states. This is a map of Yugoslavia in the time after World War II to the end of the Cold War, and it shows its boundaries before the Yugoslav wars. On March 1991, discussions between the Croatian president and the Serbian president included the partition of Bosnia and Herzegovina, a region within Yugoslavia. On June 25th, both Slovenia and Croatia declared independence from Yugoslavia. This is a map of the regions in the former Yugoslavia, and as you could see, Bosnia and Herzegovina is right in the middle of Croatia and Serbia. So basically, the agreement that we just discussed is that each of the leaders wanted a part of Bosnia for their people who identified ethnically as Croatian or Serbian, and they wanted to partition Bosnia into Croatian and Serbian parts. So, however, tensions began to rise between these ethnically diverse places, and conflicts intensified as the Yugoslav People's Army attacked from Bosnia-Herzegovina. On September 25, 1991, the UN Security Council placed a gun embargo on all former Yugoslav territories in an attempt to prevent war. This ultimately had negative effects on Bosniaks, who could no longer get arms to defend themselves. So there are three main factions in this war, who are the Bosniaks, the Muslims loyal to the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the Croats loyal to the Croatian Republic of Herzegovina and Croatia, and the Serbs and Yugoslavs who are loyal to the Republic Srpska and the Federation of Yugoslavia. This is the ethnic breakdown of Yugoslavia, and as you could see, Bosnia and Herzegovina is the most ethnically diverse places, with much of it being Serbian and Croatian, and that's why they wanted to divide Bosnia and Herzegovina between Croatia and Serbia in order to have their people be part of their own countries. So both Bosniaks and Bosniak Serbs wanted their independence, so that their movements for separatism began. By March 1992, about three-fourths of Bosnia was claimed by Croat and Serb nationalists, and on April 6, 1992, Bosnia and Herzegovina was recognized as a country. This sparked conflict and is most common date for the start of the Bosnian War. So the Bosnian War was a war as a result of multi-ethnicity and nationalism that drove Croats and Serbs to seek secession from Bosnia. Atrocities were committed by all sides, but Bosnia suffered the most by the hands of the Serbs. So basically, after Yugoslavia fell, everyone wanted independence. However, Bosnia was recognized as a separate country, and many of the Croats and Serbs living in Bosnia wanted to join their respective countries, and so they declared their own wars of independence inside Bosnia. The president of Serbia, Milosevic, condoned ethnic cleansing to achieve a greater Serbia. The Serbs were the main perpetrators of ethnic cleansing, even though all sides committed atrocities. Concentration camps were a method used to kill many of the Bosnians during the war. One of the more famous ones is the Omarska camp, which was located in a Bosnian mining village in the northwest of Bosnia. The Bosnian Serb military segregated and confined 7,000 Bosniaks and Bosnian Croats. By the end of the war, most non-Serbs were killed. 145 mass graves exist in this region, and usually 30 to 150 men were singled out and killed each night. It's a wide range because there are different accounts of what happened at the camp, but it is for certain that people were killed each day. These are the mass graves that they would be put in. They'd usually be singled out and shot and then just dumped into these mass graves. These are the beds in Armaska, and you can see how they're very confined quarters. Here are some of the people that suffered in these concentration camps, and you can see that they're very underfed and starving and very mistreated by their captors. The attack of Srebrenica was an important event in this war. Srebrenica was declared a safe city by the UN Security Council in 1993. On July 11th, 1995, Bosnian Serb forces overwhelmed Dutch peacekeeping forces stationed at Srebrenica. As a result, an estimated 7,000 to more than 8,000 Bosniaks were killed during the attack. This is a site for the victims of the massacre.
The ethno-religious warfare prevalent in the Bosnian conflict led to the use of rape as a systematic instrument of war. In what became known as mass rape and genocidal rape, 20,000 to 50,000 Bosniak women were raped by the Serbian armed forces. For the first time in judicial history, the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, or the ICTY, declared that systematic rape and sexual enslavement in time of war was a crime against humanity, second only to the war crime of genocide. Mass rapes were the most systematic in eastern Bosnia, examples during the Foch and Visegrad massacres, and in Grbavica during the siege of Sarajevo. And women and girls were kept in various detention centers where they had to live in intolerably unhygienic conditions and were mistreated in many ways, including being repeatedly raped. Serb soldiers or policemen would come to these detention centers, select one or more women, take them out, and rape them. This is all done in full view and in complete knowledge, and sometimes with the direct involvement of the Serb local authorities, particularly the police forces. And the head of the Foča police forces, Dragan Gojkovic, was personally identified as one of the men who came to these detention centers. Now, there were numerous rape camps in Foča, but one of the most famous is Karaman's house. And while kept in this house, the girls as young as 12 or 14 were constantly raped. Serb soldiers removed many Bosniak girls from various detention centers and kept some of them for various periods of time for him or his soldiers to rape. And one such soldier was Radomir Kovac, who kept 4 girls in his apartment, and he abused them and raped 3 of them many times, which perpetuated attack on Bosnian civilian populations. He would invite friends to his apartment and let them rape the girls too, and he sold 3 of them, but before that, he gave them to other Bosnian Serb soldiers who abused them for more than 3 weeks before taking them back to him, who then proceeded to sell one and give the others away to acquaintances. And one such woman who was in a situation similar to these was a woman by the name of Fatima, although, due to safety concerns, this is not her real name. And before the war, she spoke of her life and how the Serbs and Muslims lived in peace, and they were neighborly, and they often went over for tea. But then 1992 struck, and the war broke out, and she was 14 at the time, and she remembered thinking about how the village would never be affected, but it was. And when they did come to the village, they separated the men and the women, and she was taken away from her father and her family to the woods where she was raped at gunpoint. And at this point, after the rape had happened, the men argued about whether or not they should keep her alive. And eventually they decided that they should, and when they took her back to the village, she saw horrible things, and she saw the true atrocities of the ethnic cleansing of the time. She saw Serbian officials, civilians, and soldiers killing Muslim men in front of the women and children, taking boys as young as 12 or 13 and killing them in front of their families. And these weren't just soldiers, these were her neighbors, and they were civilians. And she remembered seeing 2 women kill a man in a wheelchair and argue about killing a baby because it was crying. And eventually, there were buses which arrived to take the women to safety, or so they thought. But Fatima did escape on the second of these buses, and when she got to the place where the men would eventually decide to kill her, luckily the Serbian women stepped in to stop it. And that's why she is alive today, to tell her story.
Response by the international community. The international community did little while the genocide was going on. Deeming the events in Bosnia a genocide would require the application of international laws which were created in the aftermath of the Holocaust. There was a great presence of world news and media, though no countries took efforts to end the genocide. After Bosnian Serb forces detonated a bomb in a crowded market in Sarajevo, more forceful international action was taken. The United States intervened by offering the Serbian president economic incentives in exchange for peace agreements, though he declined. Around August 1995, NATO began to attack the Serbs primarily by air for 3 weeks. Following the attacks, the Serbian president agreed to peace negotiations. One of these was the Dayton Accords. The Dayton Accords' main purpose was to promote peace and stability in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia was preserved as a single state but made into two main areas: the Bosniak Croat Federation and the Bosnian Serb Republic. The Bosniaks controlled about 28% of the area, the Bosnian Croats controlled 25% of the area, while the Bosnian Serbs controlled about 46% of the area. The Dayton Accords is somewhat controversial because the international powers decided the affairs with no input from the Bosnians, and the region still remains unstable. Here in this map you can see how the Dayton Accords divided the single state of Bosnia into the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina and the Serb Republic.
Not everybody simply sat back and let the Bosniaks suffer in silence, and one such person was Peter W. Galbraith. In 1993, President Clinton appointed him as the first United States ambassador to Croatia. He was one of the three authors of the Z4 Plan, which attempted to negotiate a political solution to the Croatian War of Independence, and he did this along with Russia and the EU. He also, with UN mediator Thorvald Stoltenberg, went on to lead negotiations which led to the Erdut Agreement, which ended the war by providing for peaceful reintegration of Serb-held eastern Slovenia into Croatia. And from 1996 to 1998, he served as a de facto chairman of the International Commission charged with the implementation of said agreement. He also helped devise and enact strategy that ended the 1993 to 1994 Muslim-Croat War and participated in the negotiation of the Washington Agreement that established the Federation of Bosnia-Herzegovina. He did a lot during the war as well, including sending a telegram to President Clinton that described the genocide in Bosnia. And he was responsible for U.S. humanitarian programs in former Yugoslavia and for the U.S. relation with the United States Protection Force, UNPROFOR, for peacekeeping mission headquartered in Zagreb, which is the capital of Croatia. And also, his diplomatic interventions facilitated the flow of humanitarian assistance to Bosnia. He secured the release of more than 5,000 prisoners of war held in inhumane conditions by Bosnian Croat forces. Then, he also helped break the arms embargo set by the UN. And beginning in 1994, on instructions from President Clinton, he allowed weapons to be shipped into Bosnia from Croatia, which was against the UN embargo. This led to a huge controversy when made public, with the House, which was Republican-led at the time, referred to criminal charges against him to the Justice Department, as well as an investigation into his personal life. After the war, in 1995, when tens of thousands of Serbian refugees were being attacked whilst fleeing to Yugoslavia, Galbraith joined a convoy to protect them and riding on a tractor to show U.S. support. He earned criticism from Croatian media and officials.
Aftermath of the genocide. The UN Security Council created the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, or the ICTY. The Serbian president and other Serb officials were tried for war crimes, but stopped short of being blamed for genocide on Serbia. The ICTY was the first international sanctioned trials for war crimes since the Nuremberg trials.
We promised it would end in 1945. The world came together, swearing that the Jews would be the last group to be systematically wiped out by another. We promised that these atrocities would never be repeated. It took only 4 years to break that promise. First came India, then 27 more genocides all over the world, until in 1995 when the Bosnian Muslims experienced a chilling renaissance of the death and destruction from only 50 years before. An estimated 100,000 deaths, 20,000 to 50,000 women were raped, and 2.2 million people displaced. These are the consequences of the world staying silent whilst people are screaming for help. A quote by Elie Wiesel: "Neutrality only helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." Do not let these people just become another set of numbers in the world's long list of genocide victims. Instead, let us attempt to hold up the promise we made in 1945.